family. Give me a second, get my life together. All right, family. I'm glad to be back with you this week. Give me a second, I'm still getting my life together. So forgive me. Okay, dog whisper. You like the light blue? It's funny. I hope you watch the show tonight so I can talk trash to you. But don't worry, family. I will clarify what I'm talking about because we gonna do it together too, family. So you heard? We are going to do it together as well as a part of tonight's show. All right, I think I got everything I want to get in order. Let that go down. All right, family. Again, like I was saying, so happy to be with you for another episode of Soul Swami Live, where we discuss all things healing. I am Anthony Howell, also known as Soul Swami, and what we do here is discuss all things healing in an effort to create a space for us to be vulnerable enough to grow and heal together. We do that through interesting conversations, live energy readings, homework, learning new concepts, all types of things that go through there. And we also have a Thursday night show that is a spinoff of a Tuesday night show in an effort to allow us to reconnect with that child in us. Thursday night is our book club. You can catch us every Tuesday and Thursday. Is my phone still going on? You can catch us every Tuesday and Thursday at what is this? Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Instagram. And occasionally, when I'm feeling lucky, you can catch us on TikTok when I'm not banned. And anything I do on TikTok would be pretty much random. But I am on there as well. So, at the beginning of every show, we generally do some energy work. Tonight, we're going to keep it a little light. Only got one sound bowl tonight. So, energy work includes a specific chakra energy point that we work on. Some sound bowl, some breath work, and visualization. And this week we are on our solar plexus, which is located in your stomach. If you are into color therapy or light therapy, the color for your solar plexus is yellow, hence the yellow tint lighting. Your solar plexus is in control of your personal power, your self-esteem, your strength, your ego, and your confidence. The element for your solar plexus is fire. So solar plexus responds very well to fire ceremonies. If you are into crystals and gemstones, you want to think citrine. Now I got a big block of that. Tiger's eye, sunstone, topaz, pyrite. Yellow jasper works very well for your solar plexus. If you are into essential oils, you want to think lemon, cedarwood, juniper, ginger, lemongrass, yellow type scents you want to look at. That's what'll help you with the solar plexus. If it is off balance a little bit, you feel a little something off with your self-esteem, strength, ego, or confidence, you want to move to the solar plexus. Now, next in our energy work, we'll do a little sound bowl. And all you have to do is just relax and let the sound bowl do what it does. For our breath work, we will do 478. That's what my spirit is leaning towards. If you are unfamiliar with the 478 breathing exercise, that is, you breathe in for a 4 count. No. Then release. No, you breathe in, hold for 4. Then release. Breathe in, hold for 7. Hey, Sherry. Then release. Breathe in, hold for 8. That feels wrong. And release, but we're gonna do it that way. Hope you've been doing good, Sherry. So for the breathing exercise, all you have to do is just relax and listen to the sound of my voice. I will keep track of the count for you. And really just think about clearing out your energy and focusing in on your breath work and controlling your breath, right? Yeah. All right. Um. Yeah, it ain't that bad. I ain't even gonna lie. I'm glad this. Even though politically it's a mess, but as an individual person who is directly affected by the government shutdown, I'm glad it is getting closer to an end than when we started on October 1st. There was no end in sight. So I'm glad that is coming to an end. And I posted today. I seen your comment, and I ain't had the time to reply yet though. But in that time, I was able to get a lot of work done on the book. So we should be putting out the first Soul Swami book soon, within the next couple of weeks. There's a couple of things I want to do a little bit. I still got to work on my acknowledgments, which wound up being a little difficult than I thought. Sorry, family. I got side note. You part of the. If you come here often enough, you know the people that we're familiar with. We have conversations with, and we love sharing. So, all right. So on the count of 3, we will start the breathing exercise. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Hold for 4, 2, 3, 4, and release. Breathe in deep. Hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and release. Breathe in. Hold for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and release. All time, family. Breathe in deep. Hold for 3. Hold for 4, 2, 3, 4, and release. Breathe in deep. Hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release. Breathe in deep. Hold for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and release. So for our visualization, I just want you to take some time to visualize yourself standing by a fire. And with you at that fire, you have a piece of paper and a pen. And I want you to, on that paper, visualize yourself identifying and writing down some of the negative qualities, the traumatic experiences, anything that your spirit moves you to want to release. I want you to visualize yourself writing that on that paper. And as you get finished visualizing yourself writing down the things that you want to release, I want you to then take that paper and visualize yourself throwing it into the fire. And as you watch that paper burn in the fire, I want you to repeat these affirmations after me. And not only repeat them, but incorporate them into your mind, body, and spirit. I am confident. I act with courage. I am a powerful being. I am motivated, persistent, and successful. And I honor myself. I am confident. I act with courage. I am a powerful being. I am motivated, persistent, and successful. And I honor myself. All right, we're going to get started on the show. Forgive me, family, laughing during that. Of course, I have this hooked up to my computer, so fortunately or unfortunately, when my computer is on, I still get notifications. So people are responding to the Facebook post. And somebody just said, I like all the options except number 3. I don't even know what number 3 is. Well, that was funny. I'm like, dang, everybody. I'm like, yo, you really have feelings about number 3. All right. So as we get started, it's something I wanted to do with you all. I wanted to. Where we at? Talking bad to me. Hey, Dog Whisper. You seen me give you a shout out? I seen you on Facebook. How you go from Facebook to Instagram? You all over the place. Hey, Nicole. Thanks for stopping by for a little bit. Right now, we're having general discussions. But in a minute, we'll get to identifying what identity is, which is an amazing thing, right? What was I looking at? Okay, so as I stated, so family, we've been working on a little bit of a book. Well, not a little bit of a book. We've been working on a bit of a book. But with you all, I want you to give in the comments, give your opinion on which book cover color resonates with you the most. Don't worry if you see any errors or anything like this, because trust me, by the time I put this out, the covers will look slightly different. I'm just really trying to get an idea of the color scheme. Color scheme, awesome. And then, ironically, so one of the reasons the color kind of matters is because the colors kind of match a certain level of intention. You remember I've talked to you all about the experience in my meditation and my prayers. I wound up getting some clarity on what these colors mean to my life and for me. So generally when I'm doing energy work and healing, I allow people to do something that allows them to naturally pick the color so I know what type of energy I'm going to be dealing with. So each one of these colors, although they just seem like natural suggestions, they actually do have somewhat of a spiritual significance, right? So first we have this blue, royal blue gradient, which I love, right? The intention or the energetic intention behind this blue is anger, right? So this book being a space of healing, it is to serve as a model. The blue color will serve as a model of a healthy way to navigate your anger, right? Because we've learned that anger is in layers and very good at masking your true emotions that you may feel, like overwhelmed, frustrated, anything like that. Sometimes even when we're tired, we wind up being a little bit angry. So blue was an option. Then we have these earth tones, which is kind of brown, and I like the brown. And again, it is, I didn't want to do red. So the earth tones are to mimic dirt and sand. So it's supposed to create a certain energy of connectedness. Ironically, only one person has picked the the brown. And I can remember that because only one person has picked the brown. So to me, that says most of the people in my energetics field are not necessarily dealing with their sense of connection. Doo, doo, doo. The next one is green. I like the green. I like the way it gradiates to the middle. It was one of my favorite picks. Green for me, or the intention behind the green book would be hard work, right? And healing is hard work. And why that is important is because we've discussed it several times. The heart is the most magnetic organ that you have. It is. Its magnetic field is 5,000 times bigger than the magnetic field of your brain and 50,000 times more powerful. So the green is to give an intention that, again, we'll start moving into a space. Heart work is healing, and it helps us move into a space where we begin to feel comfortable with the hard work. So green was hard work because healing is hard work, and it'll help us move to a space where we'll feel safe enough again to lead with the understanding of our heart, right? I like green too, Sherry. I'm actually surprisingly, like me personally, I'm torn between green because the hard work. Surprisingly, the blue because one, ironically, a lot of people are picking the blue. They'll be blue and something else, the dark blue. So I know I anticipated blue would be picked a lot because in my healing work, anger is one of the emotions I deal with all the time, whether it be hidden, whether it be it just a lot of anger. So I anticipated blue to be one of the higher pick colors. And ironically, I didn't anticipate heart to be the green to be one of the higher pick colors, and it ain't bad, but it isn't one of the higher picks because I understand how protective people are of their heart. So that green energy, like I don't know, you know what I mean? It has the potential to create feelings of fear. Let's scratch emotions of fear in people, but I like the green too. Then we have the light blue. And the light blue, for the most part, for me, and the energy that it's supposed to be is for communication. So the healing space, you go through these healing spaces, it will definitely help you to find your voice. You can be able to communicate the things that you need to cultivate in yourself, and you can be able to communicate the places that you need to insert your energy in to help you continue on your healing path. Now, this pink thing is funny because the green represents heart, but this pink, this pink one for me is actually more love. No one, no one has picked it yet. But somebody called it the light blue, so maybe that's what it is. As a matter of fact, let me go back and see number 3, because somebody said they ain't like number 3. Hold on, they can't be 3. I mean, it can't be green because we love green. So we're gonna have to check. And then this last one is purple, and purple, I anticipated it to be picked a lot too, and it has been. I love purple once it's my favorite color, and purple is so regal. But for the color of my lives and energetically, purple winds up being a color for pain, but also a reminder that everything is going to be okay. And we understand that because we learned through our healing process that pain is what breaks you, but then also through pain, we are also healed. There's the pain of the hurt and the pain of the healing. So that purple represents the level of pain, but also the reminder that everything is going to be okay. So it's the pain of healing, which is fantastic. You know what I mean? And as you think about it, what kind of I guess that makes sense. It's your job to be on all over the socials. Well, then I need you to go ahead and get on Twitch now. Go ahead and start you a Twitch so you can start giving shout outs on Twitch. And Twitch, you earn points. So when I start doing giveaways, not that it'll matter to you, depending on what I'm giving away. Because you know you can always connect with me. But then you on there. Whoop, whoop. Okay, well, congratulations. Thanks. Then give me a shot. Well, when you decide to switch, you know, say something in the comments. And, you know, your Twitch comments will be on screen. And I know you goes to the YouTube, so I won't give you a hard time. What color did you pick? I seen you late, but I haven't been able to look at it. Dog Whisper, what color represents you? I mean, well, not represent you, but what color did you pick? What color is resonating with you? So if you see the post, if you don't comment in the comment, you don't want everybody to know your choice because you understand what the colors mean now. It may be private. You can inbox me, or you can just go onto the post and say something about the color that you choose. Right now, it is green, blue. Is this dark blue? It is green, and it is purple that is leading the votes, right? So to be one of those. And like I said, within the maybe next week, it depends. I never anticipated acknowledgments to be so difficult, but they are. At least for me, I'm like, oh man. And then the dedication wound up being, the dedication wound up being an interesting roller coaster. And you picked the light blue. That's interesting. Okay. And that makes sense knowing you too. You know what I mean? in the space of your healing, that light blue. Not to put your business out there, but like I said, it's to help find your voice, and definitely, um, working with you. I know you not necessarily finding your voice because you already had a voice, but it is kind of like what we're going to discuss with identity. Voice also evolves, so it is identifying the ways your voice are evolving. So that makes sense. You know what I mean? Um, if possible, dead serious, I might do some specialties where people can talk to me and order whatever color they want. But generally, it'll be, I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your suggestions. Oh, you know what I was thinking too? Dog whisper. Nobody knows I'm talking to you except Instagram. But if ain't nobody on Instagram, they'll know. But listen, I was thinking, that would be dope. Because people then get the color that works, that resonates with them, and then after this, my spirit keep on saying, work on creating some sort of workbook to go with this, which I don't mind. I will create a workbook because what I'm learning even through this identity process is that people do need somewhat of a guide to help them along with this process. And I recognize that the lives allow me to create, address people, visual learners, you know what I mean? And then the lives also allow me to address auditory learners. But then, those people that really do need to read, and they need to read, and to read the flow of the reading takes them somewhat through a script. So that would be dope if I can do that. I will look into it, and when I start promoting the book, I'm gonna be like, hey, you can get it in any color you want. You dig? So there we go. All right, now we're gonna start moving on to our new topic. So over the last couple of weeks, we were identifying generational curses. And we did that because so many people talk about addressing their generational curses, but very few people talk about what those are. And when we went to identifying those generational curses, we were able to identify 25 of them. And from our generational curses, we decided we broke those up into which body that they affect the most, either our physical body, our mental body, emotional body, or our spiritual body. And the whole purpose of doing that is because one of the reasons that we see these generational curses is because it is just the burden of our generational blessing. When we turn that curse over, it's the blessing, right? And somewhere along the line, our family or ourselves began to focus so much on the burden of the blessing that we began to believe that we were cursed. So to do that, we have to work backwards from where we think we are to go back to where we've been. So then after we broke it into bodies, we were able to identify what the generational blessing is. And now that process winds up being important because identity is going to work the same way, right? So in this process of learning and understanding what identity is, we'll be able to identify our old identity, right? And then from our old identity, we can draw a direct connection of where we want to go in our new identity, right? And why this wound up being important is because oh God, Jesus, really, in my healing travels, whether I'm working on you, whether I'm seeing other people on the process, one of the walls that people run into with this identity, right? And when you get up to that wall of the identity, that's where that fear begins to stoke again. And people are afraid to move on, evolve, or grow because of their sense of identity. And one of the issues with that sense of identity is so many of us have limited our identity to simply just our experiences. Our experiences. So then when it comes to this space where we're healing and growing and it's time to move beyond our experiences, we wind up getting struck with fear because it feels as though we are losing ourselves. And if I let go of my old experiences, my identity, then who am I now? And that question is scary for a lot of people. So, and what wound up bringing this to the forefront as well is just in my life over the last couple of weeks, it's been interesting. I think I shared with you last week. One of the things I experienced is one of my close friends, a friend that I see as a brother, had been growing his locks for 25, 30 years, for a long time, right? Long enough for the locks to become a part of his identity, right? And then fast forward to last week, we wound up having a ceremony where he cut his locks. And it was a very emotional experience because it was literally him accepting or evolving his identity. And the ironic thing about it is the identity that he evolved to was more cyclical. It wasn't like a straight line where he was evolving into a new person. He wound up evolving into his old self. Sans the trauma. Sans mean without. So he began to evolve into his old self, but at a higher level. So when we think about evolution in our healing process, it is not a straight line. It's more of a spiral. So a lot of times you could find yourself in the same spot on the map, just at a higher point or a lower point. So then also I wound up doing some Reiki sessions, and identity came up in that Reiki, in the Reiki sessions as well too. When it came to a space where we had to work on identifying our old self, and then see if any of those identity words from our old self exist in this new self we want to be. Because then we want to ask, why are we bringing those identities along with us? For example, if your old self was angry, why are you bringing that along with you to your new self? Right? And then lastly, I wound up watching this video and it was wild. But I thought it was a perfect example of how once we shape our idea of identity, we begin to put ourselves in a box. But it was this guy who had lost a ton of weight, something to be applauded, right? And the most ironic thing about him in his conversation was, of course, after you lose a lot of weight, there's some loose skin, right? And this man was so attached to his moves. And if you don't know what moves are, those are man breasts. The extra skin, they call them man boobs. But he was so attached to them. And I heard him say that, I kind of want to keep these. They've been a part of me for all my life. I don't know kind of what I do without them. And that was an interesting process, because a thought process, because it reflected how he doesn't understand that identity can evolve. And he was the fear that I talked about of removing those. He would not know who he was without those things. You'd be whoever you were before you had those things. You feel me? So I recognize that identity wound up being an important topic that we need to discuss. And in recognizing that, I also recognize that we have to start with what is identity, right? What makes up our identity? What is an identity? So initially, when we think about identity, we want to think about the types of identities. And then, of course, together we're going to drill down and focus on a specific identity. So identity, for the most part, you have a personal identity. That personal identity is how you see yourself. It's simply the views that you have on yourself, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's not the question that we have right now. But personal identity is simply just the views you have on yourself. Then you have a social identity. Social identity is how you relate to groups and communities. And that includes social media, how you relate on social media, because social is literally in the title, and how you relate to people and groups of people in real life. That is your social identity, which can be different than your personal identity, right? Identities can conflict with each other. Then you have the digital identity. And that digital identity is your digital footprint, not just your social media, but the things you do online, period. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about how often Reddit comes up in my search. So my digital footprint includes things like Reddit, Wikipedia, Google, all types of searches for information to help us grow or help me grow. Then the last identity that we will discuss, well, we won't discuss, but the last identity to help us understand types of identity is spiritual identity, which is huge, because it is really how do you honor your spirit? What is your spiritual identity? How do you honor your spirit? How do you relate to others? How do you address the needs of your spirit? But for our conversations, I should have brought some water. We are going to focus specifically in on personal identity. Okay, so that is a very good statement. So on Instagram, someone said that personal identity and social identity are so very different. And the ironic thing about that is the way I wound up being able to see how personal identity, or explain how personal identity and social identity can be very different, is really through like who you are at home versus who you are at work, who you represent in the public. Like, you know me. So as it comes, I represent as a guy who wears a tie, right? You come over here and you chill over here, it might be good energy, but you can tell this guy is way more than a guy who wears a tie, right? I don't present myself at home as a executive director, because that does not matter. I don't even present myself at home as scratch. I ain't gonna say that, because my personal identity is definitely a healer, so I do that at home. But social identity and personal identity can be different. But one of the purposes is this, so we can bring those together, so we live in authentically one identity instead of these multiple identities, right? So like I said, for our discussions, we're going to focus in on our personal identity. The purpose of the reason why I want to focus in on personal identity, because to me, your personal identity, how you see yourself, is the foundation of every other identity we just named. How you see yourself goes deeply into your spiritual identity. How you see yourself goes deeply into your social identity. How you see yourself goes deeply into your digital identity. So we're going to focus on our personal identity because that's the one identity that we're working on evolving in our healing process. We really want to change the way we view ourselves, which is amazing, right? So, to go a little deeper, personal identity. Your personal identity is the story you tell yourself and others about who you are. And your personal identity is shaped by your internal experiences and how you interpret them. That means we've learned this language before because as it says that, we recognize that sounds kind of like feelings because we learned that emotions are natural, but feelings are the stories we tell ourselves. So your personal identity is the story you tell yourselves and the story you tell others about who you are. And it is shaped by your inner dialogues, your inner experiences, the way you talk to yourself, the way you have internalized external experiences to form internal experiences, and how you interpret them, which is simply the feelings, the stories we tell ourselves. What makes up a personal identity? First, we want to look at self-concept. Your self-concept is simply just an understanding of who you are. And a lot of times you do have to sit down and have for a lack of better words, a come to Jesus moment. And really start identifying who you are. Your self-concept is shaped by your traits, right? And it's funny because traits is important because a lot of times people will make their trait their whole identity as well, which puts them in a box. Your traits are simply, do you identify yourself as a kind person? Are you analytical? Do you think you're adventurous? Those are examples of traits that help make up your self-concept. Are you empathetic? Are you loving? Are you moody? Can you be judgmental? All of those things are traits that make up your personal concepts. Now, also, your personal concept is shaped by your abilities, right? And when you look at your abilities, the only things you want to think about is what are you good at? And then take some time to identify the spaces that you struggle as well, because this is how you be able to shape and understand the things you can and can do. And remember, these things are shaped by the stories you tell yourself. Hey, Toddy. Hey, Sherry, you missed it. Toddy had a freestyle this morning. She told me her name Toddy. She a hottie, but she cold on these streets. That's her freestyle. That was hilarious. Welcome, family. I'm glad you said something in the crowd this time. Petals and Jewels, thanks for joining for a second. We're just discussing identity, personal identity specifically. So, personal identity are your traits, your abilities, and then next, it is your preferences, which is definitely different than your abilities. And when you think about your preferences, you want to that is the things that you enjoy or you kind of avoid. And communication style is a way that you can identify your preferences. What conversations do you enjoy having? What conversations are difficult for you? Do you like your steak cooked well done? Or do you like it medium rare? It is just the things you enjoy. Do you like long walks in the park? Or would you rather sit on the couch and watch a movie? The things you enjoy are the things you avoid. Avoid. Specifically, avoid is important because it's not necessarily the things that you struggle with. It is the things that you avoid. Specifically, and it keeps popping in my mind, pay attention to those conversations. The conversations that you avoid. Next, your personal identity shaped by your self-concept is the narrative. Again, and this is going to come up very often because we are powerful beings and words have powers. And your narrative is the story you tell yourself about your life. It is essentially your feelings. The stories you tell yourself about the things you have experienced. Okay, Marquita. I see this funny because I won't call you pretty black girl. I'm like, you normally on YouTube, pretty black girl. But thanks for joining, Marquita. We on identity. You missed us picking the colors, but you already gave your vote, so it's all good. I appreciate you. So, narrative is the stories that we tell ourselves. Specifically, we identify feelings are the stories that we tell ourselves. So our narrative has to be based on our feelings. The story that we tell ourselves about our lives and our experience. How do we encourage or discourage ourselves? How do we motivate? How do we change directions? It is the conversations that you have in your life. Next, outside of your self-concept, your personal identity is shaped by your self-esteem. Your self-esteem is how much you value yourself. Right? Your self-esteem is going to be shaped by several things. One is your success and failures. And specifically, as we think about this, the self-esteem will tie into that narrative in our self-concept. What stories are we telling ourselves about our successes and failures? How do we navigate our success? Do we celebrate our wins? Or do we just move on? Do we harp on our failures? Or do we just move on? And the ironic thing about this, and I've moment of vulnerability and clarity. A lot of times we're working on our confidence, but confidence isn't the issue. It's a self-esteem issue. And for me specifically, as we talk about how our self-esteem is shaped, I really, the first point, I struggled with my successes and my failures. I would brush over my successes and harp on my failures. And that shaped a very interesting self-esteem system for me and my personal identity. And it's ironic because even at this point, I'm working with the Soul family. They're helping me with that idea right now, where I don't focus so much on my failures because they come and go, but my successes are things that need to be celebrated. Right? And even in this process, we're trying to create the book, this is going to be a celebration for me. And it actually be the first time I celebrate myself outside of that birthday attempt that I made. But your self-esteem is shaped by how you view your successes and failures. How do you navigate your successes or failures? Do you, again, brush off your successes? Do you normalize your successes as something that everyone does? And do you spend too much time focusing on your failures, allowing them to be a pivotal point in shaping your personal identity by the way of your self-esteem? Next, your self-esteem is shaped by the feedback from others. And that is important because a lot of us want to look at this space of healing and thinking that healing is not caring about what others think. But that is a fallacy. Your self-esteem is shaped tremendously by feedback from others. Feedback from others is not like a job where you look at it, you go and you get the evaluation yearly. Feedback from others are the random things that people say about you. Are there other people in your life who focus on your failures more than they do your successes? Or are the hard things or the negative things that people said to you, do those things resonate in your mind? It's funny because a lot of time in my healing process, I wound up having to spend a lot of time putting hands on ears for people, right? And what that means is these people have thoughts that are not theirs that remain in their head. That is the things that people have said to them, stuck in their mind, and now is shaping their self-esteem and their identity. So as much as we don't want to, we want to be in a space where we don't care as much as what people say about us. We have to acknowledge that that feedback, that people, the things that people say about you help to shape your self-esteem, right? And how do we receive these things? And I'm thinking, like, how do we receive when someone is speaking to us positively versus when someone is speaking to us negatively? It was wild because, like I've said to you before, there was a woman that I went to school, used to call me Black Jesus. That used to make me feel so uncomfortable. But I never felt one uncomfortable one time when these same people would call me an N-word. Black Jesus made me uncomfortable, but nigga didn't. Right? The next thing that shapes your self-esteem, and is a huge one, is your ability to meet your own expectations. Right? And for a lot of us, we are hard on ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves that it makes us difficult for us to even meet our own expectations. And sometimes because we're hard on ourselves, it makes it a lot easier for us to project those expectations on other people. Right? So how are your expectations going into shaping, your personal identity? How are they going into shaping your self-esteem? Do you think you have the abilities to meet your own expectations? Are you giving yourself fair expectations that challenge you, but are definitely meetable, right? Or do you tell yourself you can't reach that at all? Where we at? Oh, we at an hour. Okay, cool. Good, because I wanted to finish this. We're going to finish this. Next, when we're thinking about personal identity, this is something that one of the reasons, again, why we're talking about this is that personal identity has two elements to them. There's a stable element and there's a change. So personal identity has continuity. That's consistency across time periods. And it also has a space for change. And that change is evolution. And that's the part that people struggle with. They understand the continuity because once they've shaped their identity, they think that's going to be their identity for the rest of their life, right? But identity is both stable and evolving. It is growing. It is, hey, YouTube, kind of late. Sorry, family. It is growing. It is evolving. It is changing. Your identity evolving is not you losing yourself. It is you expanding yourself to understand that you are more than just what you have experienced, right? Some of the more stable attributes of your personal identity would be things like your core values. As it's funny because I'm about to take it too far. Like the 10 Commandments or the 144 negative confessions. Things like, thou shalt not kill, I have not killed. Thou shalt not steal, I have not stolen. You feel me? Those are your core values. Your stable things are long held beliefs in your identity, long held beliefs. Long held belief is your ideas or thoughts on God, spirituality. Was it passed down to you? That's a perfect example of long held beliefs. Personality traits are stable. The ironic thing about personality traits, though, they are stable, but sometimes our experiences, we allow them to mask some of our personality traits where we think we are no longer those things, or we don't see the value of that. Like a personality traits of empathy. Empathy is a good one where people at times, the burden and responsibility of empathy makes a lot of people mask their empathy, right? Some of the more evolving elements of your personal identity are your interests. I always find it interesting when I meet people who are doing all the same things that they did when they was a kid or for the last 20 years. Your interests are expanding and growing. They evolve. Your goals, you achieve a goal, you create a new goal. You don't achieve the goal, you reshape that goal to make it achievable. That is a evolving thing. Your roles change. You can go from a man to a father, or you can go from a man to a husband to a father, or you can go from a woman to a mother, a woman to a wife to a mother. Those all roles and identity, they evolve over time. We go from from child to parent, student to teacher. Those roles evolve over time. And then one that should evolve, but depending on your level of exposure. But worldview is something that evolves. A red flag or a cautionary tale of people whose worldview are not evolving. But the expanding of worldview is directly related to exposure. The more you interact with different cultures, different societies, the more you learn about them and the more your worldview can be expanded, right? For example, I tell this all the time. I was born in the Philippines. So whenever I see Filipino food, Filipino people, Filipino anything, I relate to that. I have a worldly view experience. But then also, I know all about America and other countries as well. I've interacted with people from different cultures, different Armenians, Russians, all so many countries in Africa, just so many people like that. It expands your worldview. So worldview is a part of your personal identity that evolves over time with experience and exposure. Next, we want to think about how identity is formed. Identity formation is the process of developing a sense of self. Again, your identity formation is the process you go through of developing a sense of self. Right? So, what experiences, what things that we go through that help shape this sense of self that we get with our personal identity? Life experiences are one of the main things that help us develop our sense of self, our personal identity. Our life experiences include our traumas, which a lot of people, their traumatic experience becomes the whole of their identity and not just a piece. But your triumphs are also part of the formation of the things that you were successful about. One reason I felt comfortable about being a leader, because throughout my formation, my identity formation, I was put in places where I had to be a leader. I had experiences where I had to be a leader, even if it was a foot race. I've won enough foot races where I understand what it takes to be a leader in a foot race. You feel me? Your relationships help to shape your life experiences and and are part of the process of formation, which is interesting when I hear a lot of people denying how previous relationships have shaped their identity as now. I just recognize that that's a lack of awareness. The relationships that you interact with, that you experience growing up or as an adult, have shaped the way you interact with people and things going further. The next thing that helped, next step in the process of identifying a sense of self, your identity formation, is reflection. Reflection is huge. It is taking time to think about your experiences and shape feelings or stories that you tell yourself. You can do reflections through journal, which some people do. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised she's not on here tonight because I want to give her a shout out. Liberty just made a beautiful journal for her to be able to do her journaling thing. So I appreciate that. But journaling is a good example. I never really was a big journaler until we started doing this. And it's ironic because my journaling is more sketch ideas or things like that. But you can expand on video journaling. You can do voice journaling. It's all types of journaling now, but journaling creates the space for you to be reflective, and reflection is an important part of identity formation. Therapy helps you with reflection. Therapy asks important questions to allow you to process these experiences and create new stories to tell yourself. New stories. Therapy is not just limited to sitting on going to a licensed clinical therapist, right? It's not just that. There are multiple forms of therapy. There's art therapy, there's light therapy, there's music therapy. All of this thing, Reiki is a form of therapy. Many of the people I work with will say in a heartbeat, I'm the unofficial, unofficial therapist. Reiki is a form of therapy. Reiki creates a space for people to reflect, and reflection is a huge part of identity formation. Next is your spiritual practices. Specifically, now your spiritual practices may be shaped by religion, but understand, I said spiritual practices because spiritual practices go beyond religion. Religion winds up being a guide to help you shape your spiritual practices. But how you honor your spirit, how you recognize your spirit, how the things you do to support and grow your spirit are important in your identity formation, right? Next is exploration. As a matter of fact, exploration is fantastic because we hear this idea all the time, especially when growing up. People will suggest that you go find yourself. What they're essentially saying is explore. Explore is try new roles, new beliefs, or different lifestyles, right? Again, like we said, you go from child to man to husband to father. Those are new roles. From employee to leader to entrepreneur, those are new roles. You try on new beliefs. One thing you think that all people steal, all black people steal, then you meet black people that don't steal. So you try on new beliefs. What does this look like? I don't eat pork. I do eat pork. Those are new beliefs that you try on. And lifestyle. Do you want to be fit? Do you want to be sedative? Do you want to be a herb person? You tried new different lifestyles. Lifestyles is not limited to your sexual identity. It is exploration. So life experiences, reflection, exploration help to form your identity. Next, your personal identity interacts with other identities that you may have of yourself, as we stated earlier. And in this sense, you can identify as more than one things, and they can overlap. So for example, you can think of yourself as a creative soul. That is your personal identity. But then you can also be an artist. An artist is a social identity. Your job, what you do, that is a social identity. Now, art may speak to you personally, but an artist is a social identity. Your identity can interact with others. You can be a father, a man, and a husband all at one time. You dig? So your personal identity interacts with the other identities. And as I stated, while we're doing personal identity, I firmly believe that your personal identity, how you view yourself, becomes the foundation of which these other identities are built on, right? Lastly, fantastic. And that's the last thing. This is the last one we're going to cover tonight for our identity. Something that is important and why we are on this healing path is to be in alignment. One of the more important things to your personal identity is authenticity. That is living in alignment with your personal identity. You hear me? Authenticity is important to your personal identity, being who you were meant to be, not allowing these experiences to become the whole of who you are. It is living in alignment with who you have identified, your traits, your personality, all those things. That is authenticity. That is, if you are an empathetic person, you live as an empathetic person, not as a person worrying about people taking advantage of your empathy. Authenticity is important. Authenticity, living in alignment with your authentic self, living in alignment with your personal identity, brings that sense of peace and happiness that we are looking for in your personal identity. I'm say that again. In your personal identity, authenticity is important. It is living in alignment with your personal identity that brings that sense of peace and purpose that we are looking for. So now you see why it's important for us to address identity, because many of us are trying to figure out what our purpose is, what our purpose is. Well, once we define our identity, our purpose will clear up, because your purpose will be in alignment with your identity. And authenticity proves that when I say peace is not the absence of conflict. It is having the tools to navigate conflict. So that peace that you are looking for resides in authentically living as yourself. All right, family. So, that is the beginning of our discussion on identity, focusing specifically in on our personal identity. Next week, we will begin discussing how is our personal identity is shaped, right? We've identified what personal identity is, and now we're going to talk about how, the next week we'll talk about how that personal identity is shaped. That's where experiences and the stories we tell ourselves will come into play on a deeper level. Thursday, if you are here Thursday, hope to have you join us. We will continue reading Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. Hope to catch you on a show on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, as always. If you can't make it Thursday, I hope to see you back here on Tuesday as we continue our discussion of personal identity. Family, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the energy. And more importantly, I appreciate your help creating this space for us to heal and grow together. Thank you. And peace, family. I'll catch you next time.